Okay, so today I am joined by Bryan Lacey to talk about this huge Octagon card that we have got coming up, Octagon 58. And but when I was doing a little bit of research on this card to see what I wanted to know what people were saying about it online, like the real Octagon fans, just how big is this event to them? And I saw someone describe it in a Reddit post when the first fights were initially announced as this is to UFC fans, this is their UFC 300. Like that's the equivalent here of what we got with this card. Like, does that do it justice in terms of how big this event is to parts of Europe, to the Octagon fans?
I think that's a great way of sort of comparing it into a world that other MMA fans will be able to realize. It is a massive step, and it is the fact it's topped by Attila Vey versus Carlos Vermola again. For people that have only just joined Octagon, Octagon 15 was when these guys first fought. That was when we first brought together Carlos Vermola, the biggest star in the Czech Republic, against Attila Vey, the biggest star in Slovakia. And that for me, and I likened it to the Forrest Griffin Stephan Bonner. So the fight might not have been the same, but the event did the same for Octagon. From that moment onwards is when you saw them go from strength to strength, to move to arenas, start moving into other territories in Europe. But this one, this event, the fact it's in a football stadium, the first of two this year, is massive. And the size of it isn't just lost on it's not lost on Octagon fans. You can see the response. The card, I think, if you look at it top to bottom, is phenomenal. But even the staff, like these people, like from the drivers to the social media team to the merch team to Pavel and Andre themselves, everybody in Octagon realized this is a moment. So for me, that says it all. When you're not just looking at the fans' reaction, but even people side by side that you work with are kind of going, are you ready for Eden? Are you ready?" So yeah, I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think that like anyone that has followed Octagon, even like briefly over the last couple of years, can look at this card and realize, like you said, that it is stacked top to bottom. And of course, the main event is the huge one to talk about. But I think the whole card, there's going to be stuff that people are interested in. But before we talk about fights specifically, I want to talk about the football stadium for a minute. Obviously, it's the home of Slavia Prague, which I'm sure people will be familiar with. But I was speaking to somebody who is on this card, actually, Shem, a couple of days ago, saying to him about how surely every fighter that ever decides, maybe I'll make a go at this professionally, dreams of walking out in a football stadium, right? Like, especially if you're a European fighter, it is a bucket list thing that a lot of people don't get to tick off. It doesn't happen that much. So for it to be happening, stacked card, and obviously an opportunity for these people to walk out in a football stadium packed full of fans, it's going to be incredible for all of them and for everyone in attendance and everyone watching because the atmosphere will translate. Anyone who
Yeah.
knows anything about European football, those stadiums translate when it comes to
Yeah,
atmosphere.
totally. And for me as well as a commentator, somebody that kind of is a voyeur in this game. When you're watching these gladiators make those walks, I always look at it when I watch some of the UK fighters move into Octagon and fight abroad. So they go to Ostrava, or they go to Prague, or they go to Slovakia, or they go to Germany. Because even fighters like Corey Fry, his fight before he went to Cologne was his last fight was in UKFC, which is in the Riva Show Bar in Preston. Which, God bless it, is a great venue for UKFC. It works extremely well for like a regional show. His next fight was in front of 20,000 fans in Cologne. So for me, one of the things that I always try and watch, and I even think it can play a part in the fight, is how do the fighters cope with that? What's their reaction to it? I think, and Callum Mullen openly talked about this. He said when he walked into Bratislava for his first fight in Octagon, that's 13,000 fans. He kind of didn't take that into account, and he felt it, and he didn't balance that in the start of the fight. So for me, I feel like that moment, and this is unique because it's 28,000 fans. There's not many, shows in the world that get that size of audience. So for me, it's going to be very interesting to see how fighters cope and react with that. Shem in particular, because he will have, bar his maybe 50 people that are going out to support him, he is going to have 27,950 fans against him. 100%. Like the Czech Republic is picked their side in that one. So, but for me, when I look at him and his smile and the way he copes with stuff, I think that's going to raise his game. So I'm excited about it in every single way you can think about the noise, the energy, the atmosphere, and then also, which is what I think Octagon does really well, giving fighters these moments, like you say, bucket list moments. It's not just about fighting in a small venue where hopefully you've sold 100 tickets or anything like that. These are shows which these guys will remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's going to be interesting to see which fighters really raise their games to the occasion. Like you said, I think somebody like Shem, I imagine, is going to thrive off of something like that. I feel like as long as he's getting some kind of reaction, he's in his element, whether it's good or bad. So when we talk about people who are going to sink or swim in that kind of atmosphere, one person that we know loves the big moments, of course, Cars for Mola in this main event, but as you said before, potentially the biggest fight in the early days of Octagon. The last time he met Attila Veg, he lost that fight. He was on like an 11 fight winning streak at the time, and it was a huge moment in the history of Octagon, but also Vermola's career. And of course, Veg hasn't fought since then, which I think makes it even more interesting, right? That he didn't feel the need to push on after that. He beat Vermola and was like, I'm good. And then, of course, if he was ever going to come back, it had to be to do the rematch. It had to be a show like this. Like this, when you talk about an event of this magnitude and a stacked card, this is the perfect main event for an event like this.
It's probably the reason that they felt that they could do the stadium. Like I know every other fight underneath, you look at the Tip Sport Game Changers, the quarterfinals that are there. You look at the sort of the eliminator, the pyramid for the welterweight title with the likes of Cosmo and Serdu on there. But I feel like this moment and the way it has come round is the perfect storm for the stadium. Like Carlos Vermola has wanted this fight back, and I think he's fought 12 times since then. And he's like won the middleweight belt, he's lost it, he's won the light heavyweight, but he's still the light heavyweight champion. He's had roller coaster fights. He lost his last fight by devastating knockout to Attila Veg's best friend and training partner in Pirat Kristovic. But there is something special about Carlos Vermola. Win or lose, he is one of these fighters that people tune in to watch win or they tune in to watch lose. And he has created some of the biggest moments. And I think even Pavel and Andre would say, when you think about certain stars that have helped, whether you look at the UFC and Conor McGregor or your Ronda Rouseys or things like that, Vermola is that to Octagon, and it's not lost on them. And this moment is apparently going to be his last fight. I still would put money on him fighting again because what's he going to do? How's he going to feed the lions, the tigers, and the alligators? But he has wanted this fight for so long, and Vey has been sat cage side for pretty much every single one of his other fights. And I've always seen them interact. I've always seen Carlos sort of teasing interviews. Can we get Attila out of retirement? Can we get him back into the cage? And finally it happens on June the 8th. So Vermola, is he on that sort of downward trajectory where Vey can go in and do what he did again? He won the last fight in, I think, 1 minute 30 or 40 seconds or something like that. And his life changed. He went from still a superstar in the Slovakia to, like a household name. He's been on Dancing with the Stars. He's got his own brands and all this sort of stuff out there. But now he's back. And if you've watched his Instagram, he looks in phenomenal shape. Like he has really, dialed into this. So will he spoil the party in the Czech Republic, or will Vermola get the end to his career, which, he kind of deserves, but we know this sport doesn't give you what you deserve. It gives you what you earn. So we shall wait. We shall see.
The other ones that I wanted to mention before we kind of take a look at the wider card is of course the two Brits that are in action. You mentioned briefly already the Tip Sport Game Changer tournament, and I was stunned. Not that I didn't think he had the in his locker, but the performance from Akon Wanless in Birmingham was phenomenal. And so for him to come into these quarterfinal matchups, of course, I'm going to be paying special interest to him. But then also, it really doesn't take, you can watch one fight from the other three guys that are in the tournament that are fighting on this night to go, like, this is going to be murderer's row in this tournament. There is no easy fights left. I mean, not that there was any easy fights to begin with, but it is just getting harder the longer we go into this tournament.
Yeah, it's like his performance in Birmingham was phenomenal, but it was a statement. I feel
Mm.
like across this tournament. So he was, one of the fighters with the lowest experience, which is crazy to think because we kind of know him now, and he's performed well, and we've seen what he's done on the domestic scene. Now we've seen what he's doing on the European scene. But you look at other fighters, like you've got Cater in there, you've got Bogdanovic, who's got 17 fights, I think, pro fights. Machayev, again, he's fought multiple times, and Amir Khani was in the tournament. So you look at all the records before and the accolades, and he kind of faded behind. And I feel like that performance against Siraj was as sweet as it could have come because of the quick turnaround. And because it now moves into the quarterfinals, I think he's woken people up to how dangerous he is, and he's got everything. Akon, like if you look at him as a package, he's got the looks. He comes out of the right gym. His main sparring partners with Leon Edwards, Fabian Edwards, those sort of fighters. He can fight himself. I mean, he's got the showmanship, whether you like it or you hate it, the Jedi thing that he sticks with. He makes moments, and now he's fighting Legursky, who is the first ever Octagon champion. And when we spoke about it in the commentary meetings when it first came round, a lot of people picked Legursky as the one to watch. Like you've got Paradisa in there, the current champion, Keita. But Legursky is good everywhere. Like he can knock you out. We saw with Kohut, he's very good on the ground. So I feel like this, if Akon can get it done, fires him right up there. And then he would face the winner of Bogdanovic Keita. So he could essentially fight, if Keita gets through Bogdanovic, which is the favorite to do. If he gets through Legursky, he will then face he will have faced the first lightweight champion, the former lightweight champion, current featherweight champion, and then potentially could fight the current one in the finals if he gets through like that. So as a trajectory and as a way of making a statement at his stage in his career, this is all for Akon to play for.
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier on, I spoke to Shem the other day to get his thoughts on this fight. Not that I think I necessarily needed to ask him any questions about it. I could have just said we're recording and let him go, right? Because this grudge match that has been building with Picorni for a while now is finally going to happen. I as much as I would have loved to have seen it in the UK, again, this kind of card, this magnitude of this event is the perfect time for it because, like you said, the atmosphere is going to be crazy for this one, and I don't think that it's going to bother Shem going into enemy territory, and it just makes it more exciting. But yeah, as I said, this one, they really couldn't get much more tense leading up to this one. I think that if this fight had been delayed like a month or two, then I don't know, maybe we never would have seen it because, like you said earlier, with when we were supposed to get Chepo and Pinaz on this card, maybe it could have been one of those fights that is so good that we never get it. But fortunately, it is happening, and I cannot wait for this one.
It's and again, I'll even kind of throw it back to you because like you watch a lot of fights, you talk to fighters, and there's a lot of cards. There's so many cards with so many fights, and even like UK fighters, Irish fighters starting to rise through the scene on different promotions. But there's like ingredients that come to fights, right? And it's not just the fighting style, it's not just the individual personalities, but there is sometimes a clash, right? And for me, that's what makes it so interesting because will we get to the fight? Will it happen? What will happen if we get there with 28,000 fans behind Picorni? How will Shem cut? As somebody who watches the sport, what's that feel like? Is this because again this card is full of big fights? But even for me, like knowing what's on the line at the top of the card, seeing what's on the line with the €1,000,000 game changer, this is the one I think that I am most worried about and interested in.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think that to compare it to pro wrestling, to switch it up entirely, but the same kind of applies where you can have a match that I know is going to be an incredible match, but usually the one that people want to see the most is the blood feud, it's the grudge match, right? That's what I love about this card is that when we talk about the game changer tournament, you've got elite guys going up against elite guys, and of course it's a tournament format, so it's like there's nothing too personal between some of these guys. It's just competing to who the best is, and then obviously you have the history in the main event. But this is the other one that stands out to me as like this is something that you don't need to be a fight fan to understand why this is exciting. Like you can pitch it to somebody in 30 seconds and they go, okay, no, I do kind of want to see these guys fight at long last, you know? It's instantly enticing, right?
Yeah, so and again, I have quite literally been there from the start of this journey. So I was filming with Shem for Octagon Challenge in Slovakia. So we were filming England versus Ireland, and Shem was my neighbor. So we had the little room in the hotel, and he was next door to me. And occasionally, you knock on the door, just come in. And this was when he was first with Octagon, so he hadn't had any fights signed yet. So we were waiting to see who he would fight. You know, we told the story, we'd done the documentary. He was now part of the Octagon Challenge series. And he knocked on my door one evening, and it was he just walked in. He said, "Do you know this guy?" He said, "I've been offered this guy as a fight." And he went, "Jukebox Pokorny." I went, "Yeah, he's like a legend in the Czech Republic." Yeah, he's fought the who's who. He's come back after like a crazy injury, almost lost his leg to staph infection. Came back, and his last fight, and I said his last fight, he had this mad walkout because his opponent was a soldier and he's a police officer. And Shem's face just changed, and he went, "I'm taking it." He didn't even see the fight, didn't see that. And I said, "What?" He said, "If he's a police officer, I'm fighting him." So I showed him the walkout, and he comes out with the full guard, the police guard from his the place that he serves in. And Shem straight away said, "I'm fighting him." So this was way back in Octagon Challenge days. So it has been bubbling and brewing, and Shem's history with the police, and what he believes that they did while he was away, what his family had to go through. This is all like, it's still part of the same story, like Shem running away for that crime he didn't commit, being away from his family for 10 years, hearing what they were going through while he was away. So people see it as just like something that kicked off at the weigh-ins. This is something where I feel like he is looking to exercise those demons and to make a statement against Pokorny. Pokorny on the other side, like, he's no joke. He is he's a wild guy himself. He's a born fighter, and he's saying this is his last fight. So he's saying this will be the time I retire. So he's not going to want to go over there and roll over. He's not going there to make up the numbers. He feels like this is the right time. And I thought this fight would never happen. I thought it was going to be too many small, details that they would back and forth. And I know that the Pokorny camp weren't happy with the way it was being sort of pitched and promoted. But he said, "I want it. This is what I want in this stadium." So again, you look, the odds are well in Shem's favor. You look at every single betting line, it's Shem's almost upset. He was saying, "I want to do like a Ryan Garcia and make it feel like I'm off the rails." And so the odds start going so he can try and make some more money. But if you think that Pokorny is not going to raise his game to this crowd, this audience, his home city, his home fans, a football stadium, the final curtain, the ingredients are there for something spectacular. And I just hope it gets there. That's my biggest prayer, that come weigh-in day, come fight day, we are waking up knowing that these two will make that walk to the cage.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing we learned from the last time these two guys were supposed to fight, it's that there is no time for it to be too late for it to not happen, right? Like, we were that close. So it really is nail biting until they make the walk.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of other stuff that people should keep an eye out for, if they don't follow Octagon too closely, you mentioned David Cosmer and Surdu already. I think that's the other one that will jump off the page for a lot of people. But is there anything else alongside that one that you would highlight?
So again, Jon Surdu, David Cosmer is great. That is one half of the pyramid that will be to see who'll be the next welterweight champion. Both are big fan favourites. Surdu was breakthrough fighter of 2023 for Octagon. You got Gogoladze versus Apollo under that. But again, then you've got the tip sport fights. Those are the ones that I'd watch. Even Amir Khani versus Attila Korkmaz. That is the reserve fight for that. I feel like those two are big personalities. Korkmaz had a fantastic performance against Paradiso in his last fight. Amir Khani needs to prove himself because of the performance he had against Machayev. And then you got Duque versus Machayev in the other tip sport. Again, the winner of those fights will earn themselves 80,000. They will guarantee themselves 80,000 euros on the route to potentially earning 300,000 euros. So every time there is a
a game changer fight on any card, it feels like the whole card elevates. And for me, that tournament still hasn't lit up like the previous one in the welterweights. I don't know whether it's because it's in lightweight and there's the kind of smaller guys, but I feel like these guys are arguably more technical, more dangerous, and this is the business end of the tournament. The next step is the semis, which will earn you 140k even if you lose, I think, and then the finals will get you that 300k. So it's massive. The game changer for me is what is this year is all about.
Yeah, I can't wait. And couldn't have said it any better myself. It goes down June 8th in Eden. I cannot wait to watch this card. I think that these big kind of, like you said, these bucket list moments for fighters is something that Octagon do so well. And there is bucket list moments top to bottom on this card.
I'm going to just add one other point as well, because you talk about bucket list. We've got Frankfurt Stadium coming up October 12th, which is 55,000 seats. We've already sold 45,000 of those seats for October 12th. There is a potential, and the timings will line up for the game changer. There's a potential for some of these fighters to have fought in 2 football stadiums in 1 year. That, again, I don't think there's many, if any, other European fighters that could say they've done that in 1 calendar month, 1 calendar year. So again, you look at the size and the trajectory of what Octagon are doing, and the potential for fighters to claim not 1 but 2 life-changing moments in their career. That for me is one I've got an eye on as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As soon as that one was announced, that's going straight on the calendar as one to count down towards.
You got to come and watch it. Have you been? You've been to the? Have you ever been to an Octagon event?
No, I was saying this to Shem. I don't know how this has happened, but every single time there's been a UK show, there's been something else that I've already planned to do that weekend.
Oh,
it's been a nightmare.
You got to do it not in the UK. Come
I
to
know.
Prague. Come to Slovakia. Because again, one of my favorite things to see the reaction is of whether it's journalists, fighters, coaches, or people around to experience what an Octagon event feels like in one of those home territories. So stick it on your bucket list, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Maybe I'll have to get to a football stadium as well at some point.
Exactly.
Do that one off.
That.
Yeah. Bryan, thank you so much for your time. Buzzing for the event, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you soon, especially before that huge football stadium show in October. We will definitely do something for that at the very least. But until then, yeah, have a good one, and thanks again for the time, man.
I appreciate you. Take care, brother.
All right. See you later.